If you have a man in his 40s having private conversations with a teenage girl for hours and hours, it sounds terrible. But when you put manager in front of it, all of a sudden it's like people forget what's right and wrong. It's really important not to let somebody isolate you, because when you're isolated, that's when you're in the most danger. I remember dancing with my friend in her basement, TV was blaring, and I remember thinking that is like the ultimate form of happiness.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, subscribing is the best way to support us. It helps us grow and bring you new stories from life in Japan. All right, let's jump in. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I have the pleasure to sit here with PiNKII. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. You're
an artist, a musician. You've been performing in Japan and overseas for quite a while. Have been in the Japanese fashion culture as well. We have a lot of things to talk about today. And maybe, like with all my guests, I would like to start a little bit at the beginning. I think you're from Missouri.
Originally, yes.
Originally. What is it like for you growing up there, and how did you kind of get interested in Japan in the first place?
So Missouri is, as you can imagine, pretty boring. And I grew up in a pretty strict family. So my mom married my stepdad when I was around 8, and everything was very rigid. And there were a lot of rules about what we could watch and the things that we could listen to. And I feel like, I was also homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I didn't have a lot of the experiences as a lot of other kids my age. So when I found Japan, I was kind of able to just dive in and, I don't know, just go into something completely that I was passionate about, where I feel like I didn't have influence from other people.
What was your window to Japan? You said when you found Japan, you found something you could really dive into. What was this thing that kind of opened or made you discover this?
So we studied geography a lot, and I remember being very interested in other countries. And when I found Japan, I don't know why, I was just kind of drawn to it. I think it was because like Tokyo and the city just looked so colorful and sparkling, and that was so different than anything that I'd experienced in Missouri. And especially the fashion, when I grew up a little bit more, I started becoming more interested in like Harajuku fashion and Lolita, and it was just something just completely different and new for me. And I think, it was something fun.
Harajuku fashion is very broad, and the history behind it is also kind of quite diverse. I think one of the styles and genres you got into was gyaru.
Yes.
At the time. Can you explain a little bit like what it is for people that are not too familiar, and what got you interested in it?
So there's so many different types of gyaru, so I can't really say this is what it is, but I think a lot of it is characterized by like long extensions, bright bleached colored hair, like long nails, long eyelashes. It's just like everything big, everything flashy. And I think that's a lot of Japanese fashion, like Lolita and Harajuku. But I feel like gyaru also had more of an attitude with it, and it was a bit more like owning your sexuality and being free and doing whatever you wanted. So it mixed in that colorful, cute, kawaii aspect with that badass attitude. Can I curse on here? Sorry. Yeah. With that attitude, and that just really drew me to it.
Yeah, they have a somewhat of a rebellious, when you see those pictures from, which period did it get really big? Like, was it the 80s, 90s?
I think around the late 90s.
Yeah. Was it like a very tanned skin as well, or at least the makeup, and then blonde hair and very long nails too.
Great. Like my favorite when I think I was little was like the big hair. Like I really started liking gyaru from Yamamba. So Yamamba is like gyaru, but like times 200. So huge hair. I remember seeing girls with like giant bows in their hair, lots of Hello Kitty, just everything bedazzled. And it was just like, take the craziest thing you've seen and multiply it by 100. And I just loved that.
That's easy to find in Harajuku, but when you're in Missouri, how do you kind of suddenly find some of your first pieces from that kind of fashion culture to kind of get to experiment with yourself?
I was chronically online as a child, so that, and then I would go to the library. And because I was homeschooled, I had a lot of time to just dig into what I wanted. So I'd go to the library and I would rent these books about Japan. And I remember, you know, it had pages about the food, the culture, and then in some of these books, it would have pages about the fashion. So I would kind of dig into that and then Google a little bit more and then try to find more books about that. And I remember watching videos, like really grainy. This was back in, I don't know, 2004 or something. It was literally grainy videos from people's digital camera or phone. And they were just walking down Harajuku. And I remember just wanting to experience it so bad.
So when was the first time you got to experience it?
It was a trip with my Japanese class at the time. I was in high school and yeah, it wasn't exactly satisfying because I had dreamed of going to like Harajuku and Shibuya 109. And I remember we only had an hour at Shibuya 109. That kind of drove me crazy. And then I remember we also had to climb Mount Fuji, which was not the vibe. Like, I was not happy about that. We got an hour in Harajuku and it was raining. So that was my first experience. But I knew after being there that I wanted to be there one day, like living.
Maybe the fact that you only had 1 hour and that it was raining that day was kind of what gave you the drive to keep going, to come back. Because otherwise maybe you would have been satisfied that day and never came back.
I don't know about that, but yeah. I think, I definitely didn't feel like it was enough and I had to come back.
So you come here for this first experience, you get a glimpse of what you want to see, but it's not enough. And then you go back to the States. What was your idea for coming back here? Did you already have something in mind that you wanted to do in Japan?
I knew that I wanted to do something in fashion, but there was, I didn't know what that was going to be. I just knew that I wanted to live here. Mm-hmm. And I think my parents knew too, from like back to when I was 10 years old. They knew that it was a possibility that I was going to come and live in Japan. So we found a language school and I was able to get a visa. We went through some company that helped us get the visa and everything and explained it very clearly. So I was able to come on a student visa and do part-time jobs and things like that. But I really didn't care what I was doing. I just wanted to be here at the time.
So second time around, student visa, you get to learn the language and kind of keep your studies and go back to Harajuku, I guess, with more time this time around.
So that wasn't, when I came to live in Japan, that wasn't actually my second time. I had been to Japan 3 times, including that first time before actually moving here. So I came to Japan with my class. I came here again as a teenager to do idol auditions and some idol stuff. Came here again to do more idol stuff and then got into the Harajuku fashion scene. And then about a year or 2 after that is when I moved here officially.
Oh, I see. So before the fashion came the idol
yes.
part. And is this something you wanted to do as well, or something that you thought just as a way to come to Japan?
So I wasn't really allowed to listen to American pop music growing up. I was allowed to listen to idol music because I guess my parents thought it was okay if I didn't know what they were saying.
Interesting.
But I got really deep into like Hello Project and Morning Musume, and I would watch these idols on the internet. And I remember dancing with my friend. Like, we really liked to watch the Hello Project DVDs. And we were in her basement, TV was blaring, and we were dancing to these concerts. And I remember thinking, that is like the ultimate form of happiness. Like, I want to do that. I want to dance on stage and sing. And I feel like that's when it first got planted into my head. And then I would like watch these videos on YouTube, and I don't know, I think I felt so inspired. And so that's when I started making videos of my own. I don't know if you remember the Odotte Mita videos.
Odotte Mita. If you kind of give it a try to dance it, or to kind of dance along, kind of.
Yeah, back in the day, they had a lot of Japanese girls who would wear a mask and just dance to these idol songs or these anime songs. So I kind of first started just replicating that, not with the idea to become an idol, but I just really liked the dancing. And then I think I realized after a while, like, oh, these are actually getting a bit of attention. Maybe I should add my singing. And so, you know, a lot of girls just dance to the songs, but I would dance along with a song that I had sang over. And I thought if I continued that, maybe I would get enough attention from like, I don't know, an agency in Japan or a TV show that would bring me over. I was a kid, so I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I thought that if I kept doing something, that it could happen one day.
You describe these dances as pure happiness. What is it about those dances that kind of makes you feel that way when you see the performance? Is there anything in particular that really resonates with you?
I just think music in general, whenever you're really in the music and you're not really thinking about anything else, it just kind of takes you to a different place and you're in that flow state. I think it's similar to any kind of art, really. It's really hard to start a performance or start writing a song. It's kind of difficult to get in that mode, but I feel like when you do get in that mode, you're just kind of, I don't know, in a flow state. And that's all you're focused on. And it's a great feeling. It's almost like a high.
You were studying Japanese at the time, and you started performing and singing as well. So were you comfortable with doing the songs in Japanese and singing over them while dancing?
So I had pre-recorded the audio. So I would find the song, and then I would try to find an instrumental, and then I would record my vocals and then use that and put it in the video afterwards. But I really had no problem singing Japanese. Like, that was basically my hobby as a kid. That's what I put my heart into. And my friends would come over and we would look up these Hello Project music videos and we would sing the different idols parts. Like, we didn't know hiragana or anything, but we just sang with the romaji.
Oh, like fun as a kid.
Yeah.
But eventually you make those videos and they take off a little bit and you kind of get this idea of like, oh, maybe I can work with an agency. What was it like in the end? You mentioned that you did come to Japan, but did an agency find you through those videos? Did you end up reaching out to an agency?
So I don't know if you remember back in the day, there were girls like Maggie Bon or Becky Cruel who basically just got scouted. And so that was kind of the idea. It was just like hope, basically. But I never really tried to reach out to an agency or anybody in particular. I just hoped that somebody would come upon me. And
someone did, right? Someone ended up reaching out and you got the opportunity to be an idol in Japan. What was it like for you? You, I guess, at home at that time, and you kind of get a message from someone who was like, hey, you could be a great idol. I want to help you to come to Japan.
Well, I was really young, and of course, when you're a kid and you just get an email from somebody from this country that you already idolize, positioning themselves as a professional, obviously you're going to believe them and you're going to hope in them. But I think the person that you're talking about wasn't really professional in any sense of the way. He kind of used what I wanted, like my dreams of becoming an idol, as something to hold against me to get what he wanted from me. And after he emailed me, it started out as emails, and then there was like lots of private, prolonged conversation over the course of like months, for hours and hours. And it wasn't really professional in any sense. It was, there were no contracts in place. He wasn't with an agency. He wasn't with a label. He just told me that he was a manager. And, he lied about that, and he lied about his age, and it just wasn't a good situation. But I did, because he spoke Japanese at the time, there were a couple of agencies that I wanted him to reach out for me. I liked an idol named Sakuragawa Himeko, and I thought if I reached out to her agency, maybe I would be able to perform in Japan and do a couple of things. So I had him reach out to them on my behalf and secure a couple of shows for me. But I wouldn't really call him a manager. I think that, he was good for translation, and it could have really been anybody, but he was just at the right place at the right time.
So you were 16 at the time. I think.
15.
15. So I guess it's difficult at 15 when you have this dream of wanting to go to Japan, to be an idol, to get the full kind of picture. And you mentioned he posed as something that he was not. Very hard to kind of distinguish and figure out, is this true, is this not true?
Mm-hmm.
You've got someone on the other side of the world. But you did get that opportunity to go perform.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like coming to Japan with that opportunity to perform and going out there on stage for the first time?
Going out on stage and performing obviously was like a dream come true. It was everything I had ever imagined, even though it was a small crowd and it wasn't like I was selling out arenas.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I had dreamed about for a long time. So I think being able to do that, I don't know, maybe looking back, it helped me believe in myself, like that I could make these dreams like an actuality and they're not just dreams and that things are possible. And I think being able to do that from such a young age has kind of helped me be able to think the same way now. Planning tours or being able to do shows now, I think I've been able to prove to myself that as long as I keep going for it and progressing, like you can really make anything happen.
What did you realize though when you kind of actually arrived to Japan and you know you're here for the opportunity, but you start actually having to work with that person that suddenly, I imagine once you meet in person, you quickly realize, oh, that might not be the person I thought I was talking to.
So it's really complicated because I feel like as a child, I didn't really have a lot of context. And I knew something was off. I knew that, he told me he was in his 20s, and I found out later that he was actually in his 40s. But as a kid, I was like, I don't think he's 20, but I really, like I said, I was homeschooled and I was pretty sheltered and didn't have a lot of interaction with people. So I don't know, I just didn't have much context. And it should have just been him taking me to auditions and everything, right? But he had mixed this professional relationship into something else and something that was not appropriate at all. And I was supposed to be staying with a host family at the time that my parents had met through a church. They were this Christian couple. And he was basically taking me to auditions while I was staying with them. And I don't know exactly what happened. I think they were telling him to stop keeping me out so late, and he did not listen to them. And they ended up telling me I couldn't stay with them anymore. So I was left alone with this man by myself. And as much as it was fun going to the auditions and doing the idol stuff and being in Japan, it was really difficult for me.
How'd you get away from it?
I mean, there was a point where I couldn't really get away that entire month. Like, I was just kind of stuck with him, and I feel like I put up with it, and I just, I did what I could to keep it together. And it was in December, and after the month of December, I went back home to the States. And there was like a lot of an abuse of power, I think. It wasn't just the age difference. It was just the way I was being treated, and everything was really wrong too. And I remember after getting back from Japan, I was still kind of hanging on to this relationship and this person who I thought was my mentor and my manager. But I really didn't like the way that he was treating me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was still a lot of pressure, though, to, continue the relationship and keep it together because, I thought I needed him for business in that sense. And then also I was raised very religious. And in my family, it was like the person that, you are intimate with is the person that you marry. And just a lot of fear behind that as well, and pressure to just stay in a bad position because I wanted to do the right thing or because I was afraid of what was going to happen. But I remember after getting back from Japan at the time, I was asked to go to Canada to record a song with a Canadian idol group.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just feeling like they were so kind to me, and I didn't have to earn that kindness. It was just like they were just nice to me for no reason. And it kind of made me rethink the relationship with that man, because it was just so, it was not okay, like the way that I was treated. And I don't know, I think I slowly started distancing myself when I realized that, like, okay, these people are kind to me for no reason, and maybe that's normal. Maybe it's not normal what I'm dealing with him. So I kind of started distancing myself after that trip to Canada, and I think mentally too, clocking out, because, you know, I was still with him or whatever, but in my head I was just things were starting to click, and I was realizing that things weren't right.
And the geographical distance, I imagine, helped as well to kind of cut off a little bit the contact, and for you to realize, oh, there is another way. Kindness is also possible. And these Canadian Idol group kind of showed you a different way of doing things. But your dream inside was still there. You
Yes.
kind of didn't give up on the idea of becoming an idol.
Yes, not at that point. And I do want to say that I think it's really important to have people around you, like people that are kind and caring and support, so that you can feel like you deserve better. And I think it's really important for people going into entertainment or anything to have others that they can depend on, and not just, you know, people in the industry. But yeah, at that point, to go back to your question, I was still dead set on being an idol. Like, I didn't want to quit. And so the geographical difference, it's kind of helped, but at the same time, I was in contact with this man every day. He had all of the passwords to my websites and my accounts. Like, in the back of my head, I still thought that my career depended completely on this man, because he kind of made it in a way that it would. I was kind of isolated and dependent on him. But yeah, I still wanted to continue. And I think that's another thing that made it hard to separate from him.
And also to continue something you wanted to be doing in Japan, where he was, and not in the United States.
Exactly, yeah.
How did you bounce back from this? How did you give becoming an idol a second try?
I don't know if I would call myself an idol, but after many disruptions, I feel like I just realized I don't have to fit into a certain stereotype or a standard to be a performer. And maybe I don't have to be an idol, but I can still make music, and I can still upload the music and perform and make a living through what I love. So even if I'm not an idol anymore, which I'm kind of glad that I distanced myself from that, I'm still able to perform and, you know, put on a good show.
So today you're performing on a very different, you became PiNKII in a way. That's your performer persona, with a very different musical genre as well, I imagine. And I think we'll get to that. There was a part that we kind of went back from, which was a fashion. And so you kind of had this journey into becoming an idol, and then you decided to take a different path, but you came back after that as a student and also to work in fashion. So the dream for Harajuku subculture was still there as well. Let's go back to that time when you came as a student. You were thinking about kind of going into the fashion industry. You were still interested in gyaro. What was your plan that time around? Where did that experience take you?
So I think when I came back as a student, that was actually a bit after the Harajuku fashion. So when I started dabbling into the Harajuku fashion scene, I was still a teenager, and that was before I officially lived in Japan. Is that what you're referring to? So when I came back to Japan, you know, after that time in December, I came back and I was still trying to be an idol, but the person that I work with kind of was making it impossible. And right before coming to Japan, he was supposed to take me to idol auditions. Right before coming to Japan, we got in an argument, and he told me that he wasn't going to come to the airport to pick me up. And I didn't believe him because I was like, you're not going to leave a teenager at the airport alone. And he ended up not being there when I showed up. So I was really scared at first, and I didn't know what to do, but I realized that I had to get back to my hostel with or without him. So I made it back there, and I realized that I don't actually need this man I don't need to depend on him, and I can do things on my own. So that's kind of when I started distancing myself from him, like officially. And there was even a point when he said, we're done. And I think he expected me to beg and cry and say, no, come back, I need you, but I didn't. And that's around the time that I started going to these Harajuku fashion parties. And I met somebody there who I ended up dating. And when that happened, the idol thing basically became impossible because people, I don't know if it was this manager or somebody else, but somebody was taking pictures of me and this boyfriend, posting it online. My YouTube account got deleted. The agency I was working for, somebody was anonymously flaming all of their pages. When I would do live streams with them as an idol, they were getting all of these hate comments related to me. So they ended up dropping me.
Because you're supposed to be kind of single and representing this
Purity.
Idealized idol. Yeah. So being seen in public with a boyfriend was not something that was part of the deal.
Yeah, and I think it was so messy, like all of the hate comments, and I would make a new profile and there would be more hate comments, and I think the agency just didn't want to deal with it anymore, which I can understand. Like,
how did you deal with it though? That's not easy for a teenager to kind of handle like all this negativity.
It was not fun. And I, started dating another older person in this Harajuku scene. And I saw them as kind of like a savior, which now I realize is still not appropriate because he was a lot older than me and I was a kid at the time. But I do think that because he was in that Harajuku fashion world, I was able to kind of escape into that and dabble into something that I had been interested in the past. And, deep down, I still wanted to be a performer and a singer. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe I could do rock music. Maybe I can still do idol stuff with like a Harajuku edge. And the boyfriend at the time was like, no, you can't do that. That's exactly why you're in this position in the first place. So looking back, that relationship was also not great. But I do think the Harajuku fashion was a way for me to kind of distract myself from the fact that this idol thing that I wanted forever was basically ripped out of my hands and something that was not going to be possible for me to do anymore.
We've had a couple of idols on the show as well, Heidi and recently Barry as well. It's a universe a lot of, I think, especially girls dream of going into. You've had a very difficult experience with it. Also dealing with a lot of people posing as people they are not, trying to take advantage of the dreams of young girls. Looking back at this kind of world now, when maybe others are listening that are like still dreaming about going there, what would you caution them about? How would you prevent, if possible, to kind of end up as a sort of, I don't know what the right word would be, but taken advantage of by people like them?
I think, first of all, it's very easy to get confused whenever we put the word entertainment in front of somebody. When somebody positions themselves as a manager or a CEO or somebody in entertainment, like anybody can be a CEO. I mean, I'm technically a CEO of my company in America, and that doesn't make me like the end all be all of entertainment. And I think if you have a man in his 40s having private conversations with a teenage girl for hours and hours and then being left alone with her, when you say that, it sounds terrible. But when you put manager in front of it, all of a sudden it's like people forget what's right and wrong. And I think if somebody is using money or love or success or anything to make you do things you're not comfortable with and making you feel like they're the only door to success, that's when you have to step back and just realize, like, I shouldn't have to do things I'm uncomfortable with just for my dreams, because anything that's actually right and meant to happen, it's not going to make you feel uncomfortable. It might be difficult and it might take a lot of hard work, but you shouldn't be able to let somebody push your personal boundaries or put you in danger for something that you want.
When you're a teenager and you realize you're in this difficult situation, you mentioned earlier it was kind of a challenge for you because you had this dream on the one hand and you felt like you kind of controlled access to that dream. But on the other hand, you were probably looking for help. You had the host family that ended up not allowing you to stay there. Your parents were still back in the States as well. What would you recommend people do if they feel like they're in the situation where they're being pushed to do something they're uncomfortable with and they're looking for help, looking for a way out of this?
It's a lot better for things to stop before they get in too deep. Mm-hmm. So before I was in a hotel in the countryside with a stranger, it should have been stopped way before when I was talking to a man online for 8 hours a day. It was really my parents and the adults' responsibility to make sure it didn't go that far. But, on my end, I think a big part of it for me, and even if there's not religion involved, I think there's a lot of shame, especially when it comes to, if a young girl does something for a man on the internet, she's afraid that somebody's going to find out, mm-hmm. and maybe he'll use that against her, say that he's going to screenshot and show people. And it's really important, as much as you're afraid that people are going to find out, that you put these things out in the open. Because if I would have talked to I know this would have been really difficult, but if I would have told my mom, hey, there's this guy and he's making me do things I'm not comfortable with, that would have shut it off. Like, it would have ended right there. It's really important not to let somebody isolate you. Even if it's not your parents, maybe speak to your friends or just somebody that you trust, because when you're isolated, that's when you're in the most danger. Mm.
So try to reach out before it's too late, in a way, before mm-hmm. you realize that you're kind of alone in that corner and that other people are not able to look into that locked up room of yours where they don't know anymore what's going on there. Mm-hmm. Your way out of that room, though, you mentioned, was fashion. And that was kind of a way to distance yourself from this world, from those people. Mm-hmm. What were your first experience in dabbling with fashion?
Well, it was something that I had looked into as a child. Like, I looked at these fruits magazines mm-hmm. and these Harajuku magazines and watched videos. So it was really kind of like a dream come true to be able to go to these stores in person and dress up in the fashion and basically be one of these people that I mm-hmm. saw when I was growing up. And at that time, when I was dabbling in that, I think I stayed in Japan for about 3 months, but then I had to go back to Missouri. And I think that was really difficult for me because as much as I was able to dress myself up, I feel like I had to just think about everything else. And like, Missouri's so quiet and still, you just have to sit with the reality of the situation that you're in. And things got really difficult for me for a while, and I started drinking, and I pretty much realized that I couldn't be an idol anymore, and I gave up on that, and that was really difficult for me. But after about a year of that, I saw an AVEX audition, mm-hmm. and I just applied because I was like, why not? They're not gonna, accept little old me. And then I was able to do an audition. We flew to New York, and then I became a finalist. Oh. And they told me that, they couldn't provide a visa at the time. But they said, if you go to language school, you'll have that student visa, and then you can go to our artist academy, and you can work on becoming a musician or influencer or whatever.
So we're now back at this point from which we kind of took a long way around of you getting that opportunity to go to an artist school. And you didn't go to just any school, I think. You went to a pretty good school.
The Artist Academy, right? Yeah, I feel really lucky that I had that experience. Mm-hmm. I was studying with really big idol groups. I mean, I had a dance class. It was a bit embarrassing because I was dancing with 11-year-olds and 13-year-olds who were a million times better than I was. So that wasn't like fun, but it was still a cool experience.
How long did you go to that school for?
I think about 2 years.
It's like a semongako, like a vocational school.
I'm not exactly sure because it was only a couple of days a week.
Okay.
And then there were I don't know how often the other kids were going there. I think there were programs, like paid programs, people would put their kids in. But because I was a finalist in the audition, I was able to go for free.
And what did that lead to? You kind of suddenly get to see different world or different aspect of that idol world and fashion as well. And you distance yourself from these difficult couple of years. I guess you kind of have a fresh perspective and can finally enjoy dressing up and walking down the streets the way you kind of dreamed of as a child.
Yeah, so they also put me in a DJ class, and that got me DJing in Japanese clubs. And that was really fun. So I was able to DJ and dress up in the fashion that I liked. And it kind of made me realize that I actually did want to do music. And as much as I loved the fashion, I was also going to hair and makeup school at this time. As much as I loved the fashion and the makeup and I'd kind of given up on music, DJing kind of reminded me that I love to perform. And I just decided that maybe I don't have to be an idol and maybe I don't have to abide by the Japanese standards, but I can still make music and perform. So that's when I started digging into making my own music.
Tell me about PiNKII. This is how you produce and make music today. When was PiNKII born, so to say?
PiNKII was born a long time ago. PiNKII was a name that my stepdad gave me when I was a kid. And I just thought it was really cute. I think after the DJing and making my own music, at first it started out wanting to be kind of still putting myself in a box like a pop star. But then I feel like I started listening to like female rappers and getting inspired by like powerful women. And I realized that I could still kind of have the look of an idol, but that my lyrics and my music could present myself as like a stronger person and somebody who's more free. So I feel like PiNKII still has the idol aspect in like terms of the vocals and some of the things that I add into the lyrics. But, you know, I also am inspired by female empowerment and dominance and, you know, just being free. And so PiNKII is just kind of a mix of those two things.
Combination of both. What was the first song you kind of worked on as PiNKII that you kind of felt like this is a new beginning in a way?
My first song was actually not very PiNKII. It was very emotional. It was called Tamagotchi. And it was about wanting to go back to being a kid when everything was easier. But I still feel like it was me. And I feel like I was expressing myself in a way that I wasn't able to before. And I feel like the more that I write music, the more that I'm able to express myself through that.
For people that maybe haven't listened and are trying to get a sense of what kind of music you're doing today, how would you describe it to them?
I would describe it as maybe the anti-idol.
Anti-idol. And there's a little bit of, I don't even know how to describe it myself. As you mentioned rap, definitely there's a little bit of rap in the lyrics as well, especially. A lot of like electro-heavy for some of the songs as well. So anti-idol, I think that's an interesting way of putting it. When you write those songs, you mentioned female empowerment, being free. Who do you have in mind as a listener that you kind of want to share this with?
A lot of times when I'm feeling not myself or a little sad or not confident, I like to listen to, you know, female rappers or some K-pop idols, just like very powerful music. And I feel like I want to make music that people can listen to when they're feeling like that. And it is like female empowerment, but honestly, anybody, if it makes anybody feel like they can get up and take over the day, that's what I want to do.
So you have that experience at the school, getting to DJ a little bit. You reconnect with the idea of making music, but now you're like, I'm not going to be an idol. I'm going to become kind of an anti-idol. And you go down this new path. Now, today you've made and written multiple songs and so on, but what was it like for you to kind of go down on this new journey? I think now you're spending time both in the United States and in Japan, going back and forth frequently. How did you kind of establish yourself as this new singer-songwriter and performer?
Well, at first, Avex told me that they wanted me to be a YouTuber. So I was doing YouTubing for a long time, and I kind of had this like goofy little innocent persona that I feel like didn't really fit with my music, but I was still trying to make it work. And then something happened where I had to go back to America for a while for my own safety, and I kind of had to start over from zero again. And I think at that time I realized that I need to do exactly what I want to do. Like I'm done with depending on other people. I'm done with having the sound they're telling me to make. I just want to do what I want to do. And I think that I had the same motivation as I did as a child whenever I was making the YouTube videos and I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And it was the same thing when I had to start over again in Missouri. I knew that I had to keep making songs, and it didn't really matter. Like I didn't have a specific goal. I wanted to continue making this music. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, just so as a way of self-expression in a way. So it wasn't even about the idea of going back on stage or making an album or whatnot. It was just like, I need to write those songs and express all of this. You said the first song was a very nostalgic one, going back to your childhood when things were easier, when you didn't have all of this pressure. What are some of your favorite songs that you've wrote and why are they important to you?
This is hard because I forget the names of every song that I write. The past 2 releases that I did were very important to me just because they were collaborations with people I had been listening to for years. So my last song was with Searle, who's a producer that I listened to as a child. And I just wish that I could tell that kid back then that you made a song with him in 2025. So that's really important to me. And then the song before that, too, was with another producer named Moxie Floxy that I've been listening to for years. And I guess it's less about the content of the song and just the fact that, okay, I had to start all over again from Missouri. And now I'm making songs with these artists that I adore. So things like that are what really make me thankful for where I am now.
Going back to Missouri, writing the songs just for the enjoyment of writing them and expressing yourself creatively. When came the time when like some of the songs kind of maybe got some attention again and you realize, oh, maybe I can perform here or collaborate with some of my childhood kind of favorites?
Everything is kind of a blur, but...
Yeah. Everything moving too fast.
I actually feel like it was more of a slow growth. There wasn't really one moment where I realized like, oh, I can finally collaborate with this person. It just kind of happened. Like if I just continued making stuff, it just worked out that way.
Are you're now still based in the United States? Do you kind of plan to move back to Japan and establish yourself here as an anti-idol?
So I'm actually in Berlin now.
Oh, yes. Okay. We were talking about this just before moving, but that is kind of being finalized as this episode is being edited.
Yes. I don't know where I'm going to end up. I know that I don't want to be in the United States right now. And I love the techno music. I've always loved like dance music, trance, techno, things like that. So I love being in a place where I can collaborate with those kinds of artists. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. And I do think, I see myself when I'm very, very old, like 70, 80 years old. I see myself settling down in Japan, like somewhere in the countryside and just living out the rest of my life there. But for now, I don't really have plans specifically to come to Japan and work in entertainment. I'm just kind of going where life takes me.
How do you feel, or how do you see the perception of your music, which is, I think, still originally inspired by the idol culture of Japan, how your music is now perceived in the United States, in Germany, and Japan, which are kind of also three countries with like very different music scenes, different cultural backgrounds, and you're bringing your kind of energy, your message there. Do you notice a difference in the way people are listening to it?
So I was really surprised. I went on tour for the first time last year, and that's when I first went to Berlin. And I have a huge following in Germany. Germany is like my second top listener area on Spotify. So, I mean, I guess they like the freaky techno stuff, and that's what I make. So I think the electronic aspect fits more in Europe. And then I think when I'm in the United States, I noticed that a lot of my shows are like, the crowd is full of anime fans, cosplayers, people. I like to say my concerts remind me of like an anime convention rave.
Interesting. So it's, in the US, it's more like still the anime side, the connection to Japan. And in Germany, it's more about the music itself, the electronic.
Yeah.
Did you get to perform in Japan too?
Japan has been so difficult to perform in because another thing that happened whenever I was a teenager was when I was getting kind of stalked whenever I left that manager. I think something happened with immigration. And when I came here for the ABEX audition, they brought me in the back and they asked me if I had been performing without a visa. And I think it kind of did something, I don't know if I'm flagged or something, but I cannot perform in Japan, like at all, not even 2 songs, unless I have a proper visa for it. And it's just a headache. So I haven't really done that yet.
So you need to get like an artist performer visa in a way to kind of come back and perform here. Is it what all these, let's say, famous performers do when they come for concerts or festivals? They need to get these performer visa. Interesting.
The club provides it, like the venue or the festival. But in those cases, it's because, you know, the events are so big that they can afford to do that. But if you're just an independent artist, it's a lot harder.
Yeah, I can imagine like a smaller venue in Shibuya or Harajuku.
A live house or something.
Yeah, it doesn't want to deal with providing visas. Wow. So where does that leave you musically now? Based in Berlin now, still strong attachment to Japan. What are you working on creating? What are your big plans now for 2026 and beyond?
So I definitely, this year has been so crazy in terms of moving everywhere and trying to find an apartment in Berlin. And now I feel like when I get back to Berlin, I'm kind of in a space where I can just focus on the music and just isolate myself and hopefully write an album. So that's kind of the plan for next year.
So a full album from start to finish. Do you already have some ideas, concepts in mind?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I will say that I think this trip to Japan has inspired me a bit. And even on this interview, being able to talk about certain things has really inspired me. And I think I might start adding Japanese into my music again.
That will kind of give it a new dimension as well. How comfortable are you with suddenly incorporating Japanese as a language as well into your music? Is it something that because you kind of studied it a lot, used it a lot, you feel very comfortable with, and also musically speaking to insert this? Or
honestly, when it comes to writing, before I was making music money from my music, I was doing one-off like translation jobs. So people would hire me to translate their lyrics to Japanese. Or like, let's say they wanted to do a Dua Lipa cover and they wanted Japanese lyrics. I would translate that and they would pay me for that. So when it comes to that, I feel like musically, I have no problem doing that. I feel like sometimes people can take it the wrong way. Like I know you mentioned you had Barry on the podcast.
Yeah, we had Barry on the podcast who went through quite a...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't even know how to phrase it, but that was quite something she went through, something nobody should have to go through. And so that makes you kind of second guess a little bit.
A creator who's not Japanese, speaking Japanese, sometimes it can draw the wrong kind of attention. And so for a while, I think I just left the Japanese out of my music because I didn't want that attention. But at this point, I just don't care. I just want to it's part of me. I lived here for so long. I went to these Japanese artist academies. Like, I think I don't need to hide that just because I'm worried about what people on the internet think.
You mentioned this trip was inspiring for you. You just came from Sapporo, where you spent a few days. How do you feel now coming back to Japan, a country that kind of you've experienced so much in, both positively and negatively, from your teenage years until now, basically?
Mm-hmm. This trip has honestly been a little difficult for me because it's brought up a lot of memories. But I think now that I'm an adult and I'm on the other side of what happened, I can enjoy those things. And they're not attached to bad memories anymore. Like, I can make new memories with them. And so as hard as it was whenever I was younger, now I feel like I can just be free and enjoy the good parts of Japan.
What are your favorite things to do in Japan, or where do you like to go?
Well, the first day I came here, I told myself I was going to rest and stay in bed all day, but I ended up going to 109 and spending all day there. So a lot of shopping. The shopping in Berlin is obviously less than desirable for somebody who dresses like me. So I'm replacing my entire wardrobe in Japan.
Are you still kind of following the general gyaru kind of trends? I don't know if they're trends or if they're just kind of, this is gyaru, but...
I think it's less rigid for me now. Before I was like, I have to be gyaru and I have to wear this and this and this, but not this because it doesn't fit into the gyaru stereotype. But now I kind of just like, take bits and pieces and wear what I like, and it's not that serious.
You mentioned spending the entire day at 109. It's one place that when you came for the first time, you didn't get to spend much time at.
Yes, exactly.
What is it about 109? I think I've been there once, and I...
Really?
Yeah. Explain to me, why is this building in this place so iconic and so important? What can you find there that is so unique?
I mean, it's I think 9-story mall. Like, what more could you want as a shopaholic? I think there's so much. There's so many different things they sell there. There's something for everybody. There's probably even something for you. So
yeah, maybe I'll have to go and check. But that building has been on the corner of Shibuya forever, and kind of everyone's seen it. And is it kind of more representative of some subcultures, like you mentioned, shopping for some items from gyaru, or is it really for everyone?
I think it's changed a bit more over the years. I think it follows a lot of the trends. So when I came back to Japan in 2023 for 3 months, and back then the fashion jidaike was really popular. So almost all of the stores were following the jidaike trends. So I think whenever it started, there were more gyaru, and that was the trend. So it was mostly gyaru brands. I mean, even the first time I came here, that was like the golden era. And now gyaru is coming back a bit. So they have some gyaru, they have the jidaike fashion, they have just typical Japanese fashion. But I think the typical Japanese fashion is still more interesting than the things that I can find in Berlin, Zara, like H&M. That just doesn't do it for me.
Do you get your satisfaction though from spending the day at 109 now? Do you feel like that childhood dreams has been kind of fulfilled?
Definitely. If I just wish that I could go back to that, 15-year-old girl and show her what I've become, because I think she would be pretty fascinated.
Yeah. Looking back at your journey back and forth between Japan, America, and now Germany, what would you want people to remember from that story? If some are looking up to you as a musician, as an artist, as someone who was an idol, who's been in Harajuku fashion, and that may have many questions, that may want to look at you for answers, what would you like them to kind of take away from this?
Well, I would first of all like them to know that you need to be careful about who you entrust your career and your life into. You need to be open with the people around you. And let's say you're in a bad situation now, there's always a way out. And I've been in terrible places. And for a while, I thought that that defined me. But I was able to get back out of that and make something really powerful that I'm proud of. And so, the first thing is try not to get into those situations. Be careful of who you're trusting. Don't ever let somebody hold something over you, money, power, love. And if you are in a situation like that, there's always a way out. And it can be difficult, but it's doable.
Pinky, we talked about so many things today. Is there anything that was important to you that you would have liked to talk about that we didn't really touch upon?
I feel like we talked a lot about what happened in my past as a child, but I don't want this to just be like, oh, she's damaged and all these bad things happened to her. But I want it to be more inspiring for people to understand that even if you do go through something terrible like that, you can come back and make the best out of it and live a life that you're proud of and just wake up every day and be happy. Like it's possible.
Just like the child that was watching the girls dance on TV. Pure happiness.
Exactly.
I think that's a very powerful message. Pinky, thank you so much for being so open in our conversation today and sharing your story, your experience. I think it's a very important one for many to hear and to kind of reflect and especially see, as you just mentioned, that you can bounce back, you can make something very powerful even from difficult situations. But when possible, don't let it get to that.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you very much, Pinky.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for sticking with us all the way till the end. We really appreciate it. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the podcast. It helps us improve the show and bring you more in-depth conversations from Japan. Take care and see you next time.